Welcome once again to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me, Juan Zarate, our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Bob.
Let's talk about the dilemma facing John Brennan, the director of the CIA. This harsh report comes out from the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, and in some ways it attacks the agency, but it also kind of points a finger at Brennan because he's now the man in the middle here. Yeah,
John is in the middle of this, and in full disclosure, I worked with John. I count him as a friend, so full disclosure here. But he's right in the middle of all this, and the trajectory of this debate about the CIA program in some ways follows his trajectory. He was at the right hand of George Tenet. He was at the right hand of President Obama, and he now sits at the center leading the CIA. And his sort of point of view and sort of position is now sort of in some ways framing the debate. And there are some who are calling for his resignation, saying that he can't be the one to ensure oversight of the CIA when he was part of the program, in a sense. It's oversight at the start. President Obama has confidence in him. He was the counterterrorism advisor in the White House for a number of years. And John has said that the program should no longer be in place and understands that mistakes were made. And so his trajectory and his position really follows the arc of the history of this program. And that's why he's such a key character and figure in all of this.
Now, to be fair to Brennan, he has said this was wrong. He didn't agree with it. He doesn't think necessarily these kinds of techniques produce valuable intelligence that couldn't be collected otherwise. He's kind of agnostic on the point about whether or not it's effective. But he's saying we won't go back to these techniques. Yeah. He's saying the things that seem like they ought to be in line with what the critics have brought forward here. But does he have a problem with his workforce?
He does. I mean, he's the director of Central Intelligence. I mean, he has to worry about his own workforce, the people who are still there, who are working in this program. And so he's got to worry about not just morale, but also the sense of integrity in the building and whether or not people think that their director is going to defend their interests, especially as the CIA is being asked to undertake difficult missions, and missions which they're being told are authorized legally and have political support, but which, you know, next year, next term, in 10 years may not be so acceptable in the light and cool comfort of another day. And so that, I think, is really something he has to worry about. And you see that in the response that came out of the CIA, because it was not full recognition of sort of faults in the program. It was recognition some mistakes were made, but a defense of those who were involved, and certainly a defense of the institution.
It's a very nuanced report. I mean, Brennan, in leading the agency response, is trying to kind of carve a middle ground, saying, okay, we're admitting some mistakes were made. Yeah. We're not going to rule on whether or not the program's effective. We know what we got because we used the program. But I have a sense that some of the rank and file people are feeling like that's not a strong enough defense for them.
No, that's right. And I think what you've seen in place of that is the ex-CIA directors and the ex-deputies who oversaw this program becoming the surrogate voices for the workforce.
That's kind of an orchestrated effort.
Oh, absolutely.
They've joined forces.
Yeah, George Tenet, Mike Hayden, Porter Goss, and the deputies have joined forces because they feel like the CIA has to be defended. They feel their own reputations and work has to be clarified. And frankly, they feel like they didn't have a voice in this report. They weren't interviewed. And they see that as a major deficit. And you've seen them on the airwaves. You've seen them in print. You're going to continue to see them. They've got their own website defending what they did. Certainly admitting that some mistakes were made, but trying to clarify the record, not only for their sake, but for the institution of the CIA and the men and women who are still there.
And just as we wrap up, what does John Brennan have to do to restore his own standing with his workforce and to be in a good place in terms of the critics in leading the agency forward?
Well, I think first and foremost he has to appear to be defending the institution of the CIA and the men and women who work there. To the extent that there are suggestions that there are criminals walking the halls of Langley, or sort of moral repugnancy in the agency, I think he has to rebut that and has to do it forcefully, and his own people need to see that. The tougher question here, I think, is with Congress, because he has now a somewhat strained relationship, certainly with Dianne Feinstein, who's no longer going to be the chairperson, but he has a difficult relationship with Congress, especially the Democrats, some of whom think that he's backtracked on some of his promises and views. I think he's fine with the president. The president knows and trusts him, and the president has expressed confidence in him. So I think the big question here is, how does he buttress the workforce while maintaining relationships with Congress and sort of maintaining his own narrative arc, because he's been in the middle of this since 9/11.
And oh, by the way, he's still dealing with some significant problems now with ISIS and AQAP and other groups. I mean,
the threats
the
in the
world goes on.
Yeah, as the Director of National Intelligence has said, he has never experienced a more difficult and dangerous time than we're in now.
Juan, thanks as always.
Thank you, Bob.
And thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We'll see you next time.